announce it. And yeah, let me check if. Do you have my Twitch link, by the way, or should I send you over?
I've got it. I got it from your Twitter account.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, got you. Sure. Makes sense. Okay, let me check if it's working because I'd rather double check everything. But let me check.
Of course.
Okay, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. I'd rather double check everything. Okay, it seems it's working fine.
Of course.
Okay, 1 2 3 1 2 3. I'm just moving my hands in order to like see if there is no extra.
Of course.
Okay, it's working fine. Nice. Okay, let me sit into my original position here. And let us know, ladies and gentlemen, if we can start. Let us know. I know it's morning time, but if you are still on starting your work, please speak up, everyone. Let us know if we can start. And then we can actually start into. I will adjust my mic here. Let us know. 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 I will double check myself as well because I don't want to wait too much on people's answer because it's still morning time for our place. So people's answer because okay, it seems everything is working fine. Okay, Isaac, let me know if you're down to start. Let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome everyone in my very new episode of my Dev Live show. I'm today joined with Isaac, who is the main creator of the game called Ascending Inferno. And I'm very thankful and very honored that you joined us for today's episode. Like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Isaac. I'm one of the co-founders of Apollyon Studios. Originally founded by 4 people, and then ballooned to a team of like 14, I want to say, during its peak with contractors for Ascending Inferno. And yeah, we've just recently released Ascending Inferno. So been working on it for 2.5 years.
I see. Thank you for that. So my very first question would be, what was your very first contact with video games as a player, if you remember those times of your past?
Oh, my very first time like playing games and inspiration sort of thing. Yeah, wow. Oh gosh. Yeah, I can't remember what game it would have been. It would have been on the PlayStation 2. It was an awful like arcade dinosaur game. It was so bad. But that was my first exposure into it. And at the time, like little me was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And I grew up playing like Ratchet and Clank and stuff on the PS2.
Nice.
Yeah, and then had a PS3. I think played those like more toonish, like I guess stylized games. And then the first like kind of realistic game I played was Modern Warfare 2, and that just blew my mind. I was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, starting from there.
I see. And what was the transition click for you when you realized that, okay, it's me who loves playing games, but I also would like to work on games and make my own games?
Yeah, so I've always been really interested in games. I think I was, even from a young age, I was really fascinated with, I suppose, specifically the experience of playing a game. And I tried to imagine it from the dev perspective of like, hey, I've made this thing. I want the player to feel this like emotion here or there, like, you know, they're crafting their experience and stuff. And I always thought that was really, really interesting. I think I've always been creative. I like writing short stories and that sort of stuff. And I think games being more interactive and immersive for players and stuff has always been really appealing. So it's been something I've always been kind of passionate about.
I see. And what was the actual first time, like when you take your first step into make your own games or into this big video game industry? You started working on games.
So always at a hobby level, then in like on and off sort of thing. I didn't study game dev. It's all self-taught for me personally. I went to uni. I studied psychology, so completely different from games.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, so quite different. But like even through college and uni, I've still been interested. And then it got to the point where I was in my last year at uni, and I knew I wanted to do something in games, but my pathway wasn't quite there yet. So I took a big leap. I got together with my partner Rebecca and my 2 best friends Ben and Bass as the 4 co-founders of Apollyon, and we're like, hey, let's make something. Let's see what we can do. and it kind of snowballed from there. I think at the time when we first were getting into it, like it was our first time touching Unreal Engine 5 because it just come out, so we had no idea what we were doing.
I see.
But we did game jams constantly, trying to learn and improve the engine, and Ascending Inferno came from those game jams as well. So we just really rapidly tried to learn, really enjoyed it, and yeah, we ended up committing to it.
I see. I see. The
Hmm.
topic that you were talking about just now brought me up
Yeah.
two questions. The first one would be what could cause the effect that you mentioned that for so many years it was just a hobby and you haven't started it
Mm,
something like bigger, like a commercial game working on that?
mm.
Do you think like you
Yeah,
wanted to have some learning experience and that's why?
yeah. So I think games has always been seen as something that's like risky. I
I
suppose I
see.
mean,
I
it
see.
definitely is for sure. And especially in Australia, where the games industry isn't massive like the
I see.
US or in Europe and
I
stuff,
see.
it's
I
quite
see. I see.
small. I didn't really see it as like a career sort of
I
thing,
see. I
where it's
see.
like I know people can do this professionally. We do have big Australian indie games like Hollow Knight and Cult of the Lamb, but they're
True.
like one in a million or something like
I
that, right?
see. I
It's
see.
pretty
I see.
rare and it's pretty hard to get into the games industry in Australia. So, when I studied psychology, I originally wanted to do clinical psych as a part of that.
Oh,
That's kind
okay.
of what I thought I would do. Yeah. I had the really nice benefit of psychology being related to game design, so it
True.
could
That's
kind of
what
segue.
what
Mm,
I wanted to ask as my second question. Sorry for interrupting you. That I feel like psychology is really connected to video games, right? On a much higher
mm,
level that people would think. Because, for example, I always say this that, for example, if you analyze people how they play multiplayer games together, it also shows how they connect with each other in real life too, right? So
mm.
how can they cooperate and all these things? Like, in my opinion, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I'm specifically like really interested in influencing player decision making and like
True, true,
behaviors
true,
and stuff
true.
and
Moral
motivation
things
and all
as
this
well.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I find that stuff really fascinating. So I had the benefit of, well, if I didn't want to do games, I was going to do clinical psych, but psych's related to games. So bit of a
I
double dip.
see, I see. So it was
And then it
always
was, yeah,
there, like kicking you in the
mm,
head that
mm.
you should do this, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%,
I see, I
definitely.
see, I
And it
see, I
was
see.
my final year of study where it was just like, okay, let's properly give this game thing a go, give
I
it my
see,
best shot.
I see,
Otherwise I'll regret it. So
I see.
yeah.
So, more personal question from me would be: how do you feel about your family, parents, and close friends? Were they supportive about this decision that now
Mm,
you went into from a hobby to be like a professional game developer and start making
mm,
commercial games? How do you feel about that?
yeah, I think they were overall my parents were very supportive.
I see.
I think uh as anyone would be skeptical
True,
um
true, true, true.
of being
They
like,
want the
yeah, I
best
want to
for
do
you,
this.
right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Where it's like, I am doing all this work to study and stuff. At the same time, I'm also working full time elsewhere.
I
So
see,
game dev's really on the sides, like late at night
I
sort of
see, I
thing.
see, I see,
And was definitely hit with the like, oh, make sure you keep working or you keep studying and stuff in case it like doesn't pan out. And it was kind of this gradual thing of the game dev just slowly started eating up more and more of my time every day. I had all
I
these
see,
other commitments, but slowly over time, I would spend more time every day doing more game dev
I
stuff.
see, I see.
Um, I just yeah really enjoyed it. And then thankfully my partner Rebecca also started the studio with me, which is very nice when the person you're in a relationship with
True,
is like
true,
on the
true,
same page.
true,
We've been
true.
together for 8.5 years now, and even
Okay,
since
congrats to
yeah, so
that.
quite a
That's
while.
rare,
Yeah,
by the way. Nice,
yeah, yeah, 100%.
nice.
And even when we were in like high school, I want to say like year 10, 11, the name Apollyon Studios for our indie studio, we actually came up with way back then. We still have
Wow.
all the old
Okay.
like horrible concept art of the logos and everything.
Nice,
Looks
nice,
really
nice.
bad, but yeah, like it's always been
That's
something
the
that's been in the back
passion,
of our
right? In
mind.
you and in her as well. Nice,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
nice,
yeah,
nice,
exactly.
nice, nice, nice. Was it, by the way,
Yeah.
scary to start the company really and to make the first step into like making games
Mm,
for money and
yeah,
for appreciation
for
of people?
sure. 100%. Yeah. I think I'm very lucky that the people I started it with, I completely trust and still do
I
to
see.
this day. So that made it a little bit less scary seeing these three other crazy people who are taking the big leap with me.
True,
Because
true,
my
true. They're holding your hands,
the
right, and taking this
yeah,
faith of leap like
exactly.
in Assassin's Creed games. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think knowing that we were all in it together really, really helped. But
I see.
yeah, there's definitely like the adult moment that happens every now and again where it's like, huh, I need to make sure I make enough to like live and stuff like
Very
that.
true, very true, very true. That's the
Yeah,
hard part
exactly.
of being a creative person, right? To pay the bills.
Yeah,
We have to focus on
100%.
that too. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Do you believe, by the way, in perfect synergy? Because since you're
Mm.
working with so many people and your best friends, do you believe in perfect synergy between team members, or is it something that
Mm.
develops out through the process of working together?
I think it develops during the process of working together for
Okay.
sure. I
Okay.
think everyone, even just like pipeline wise or way of thinking, everyone thinks slightly differently. So
I
I
see.
think, you'll never meet anyone, at least in my experience, who like is always exactly on the same page as
I
you.
see. I see. I see.
That's where things like communication and stuff is really important. I
True.
think like our team's always been on the right track, as in we've got the same goals, the same vision and everything. But because the thought process stuff, some people think of getting it to that goal in different ways. And it's not necessarily wrong or anything like that, but it's acknowledging that, we all have the same goals and whatnot, and communicating with each other how we think we're going to get there, and then figuring out the best route.
I see.
Um, and I think that's just something that naturally happens over time, the more longer you work with people and stuff like that.
I see. I see. And
Mm.
how do you steady the full ship in which there are you and your team members as well to always have like the strict vision that you had
Mm.
when you created or started creating your games?
Mm.
How do you
Yeah,
manage
really
that
good.
balance between all
Mm.
those members to have the same vision or similar vision at least?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing for sure. There's a lot of variables
Okay.
that play into it.
Okay.
Everyone in the fields are creative. In some way, shape, or form. Even the programmers have their own vision for how things should work
I
and
see. I
stuff.
see. I see.
I think, like I was saying before, communication is the most important thing. As the producer for the team, I try really, really hard to make sure that everyone's opinions and voices are heard,
I
given
see.
on a topic,
I
even if
see.
it's not related
I see.
to what they're currently working on. We had this moment where we were 6 months in development, and we'd already made the first two levels of our game. We had our art style and like all the art in and everything. And one of the artists walked into my room and pitched to me that, hey, we should completely change our art style, essentially. And we're like, okay, that sounds crazy. We would lose a lot of work, but I, let him pitch it. And the more he pitched it, I was like, yes, this makes sense. This makes sense. And we ended up actually, yeah, completely scrapping 2 months, 2 months, 6 months worth of work to, like do that big art style overhaul, which is something
Okay.
that never would have happened if I was so rigid in how,
True. True. True.
like everything should go. If
But it's
it's
the
like, hey, I've
benefit.
done
It's the benefit
Mm.
for or it's the for own goods for the project, right?
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think, like I was saying before, fundamentally, everyone on the team or the project wanted it to do well,
I
and
see.
they all
I
have their
see.
own different ways of doing
I
it.
see.
So
I
it's just
see. I
making
see.
sure they're heard and seeing where there's overlap and stuff like that.
I
Yeah.
see. I see. So I was wondering what came first in the development process. Was it the story or the gameplay mechanics for Ascending Inferno?
Definitely the gameplay mechanics,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Because the game originally was a game jam.
I see.
The early prototype was like, yeah, it was a 48-hour game jam.
I see.
Um, and we had nothing but the mechanics for it. The story definitely came later. I think the full story, start to finish, was like, this is probably not a good thing, but I hear it's fairly common in games. Like the full story was done 80 to 90% like way into production, like at the end.
I see.
So
I
it
see. I see. I
was
see. I see.
something that was like pushed back a fair bit and then made the fit into it. We've always had this like big overarching goal for how like general story beats and stuff, but the connection and the dots between those story beats
I see.
weren't fully like materialized until that 80-90% way through production.
I see.
Um, so yeah, we loosely knew that like yes, we want it to be set in Dante's Inferno, and it's like cool. What can we do with that? And kind of settled for the rule of cool, where if it sounded cool and fun, like why not? And then let's find a way to make it work. So
I
yeah.
see. I see. Was it, by the way, your weird process or method for you that the gameplay came first, since you mentioned that you always had love for writing stories?
Yeah, it was at the time when we started the studio. Because like I said, I always do love making stories and stuff, but I didn't recently do the narrative work
I see.
for the game.
I see. I see. I see.
I I think the first let's say 7-8 months of the game, there was no narrative work done at
I
all,
see.
like
I see. I
barely
see. I
any.
see.
Um, we really tunneled focused on the core gameplay loop and making sure that was fun and exciting and
I
enjoyable
see.
for players. Because the game itself is really niche. It's a Fodian game, so it's inspired by Getting Over It, Only Up, Jump King. So it's a game that's designed to make you upset. And how do we balance being upset with being a genuinely fun game? And it's like there's all those interesting like technical questions that we kind of tackled first, and once we built up that base, we felt it was then easier to slot in the story.
I see. I see.
Mm.
Would you like to do like a more story oriented game in the future?
Yeah. I think Ascending Inferno currently is like by far like the story in it is crazy in depth for what genre of game this is. I think there is like oh gosh, like 3 to 4,000 lines of dialogue, like different story cinematics and stuff, which like is just unheard of in this genre.
Sure.
And we were really
But that's the unique
limited.
thing about it, right? So it makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah, exactly. And we were really limited in the story we could tell in a
I see.
sense because people who play that type of game usually don't care about the story.
True, true,
But
true. I would say
by
sadly, right? Because like it has
yeah,
an option for the story as well, like you said, and it's a unique twist to have a big story in these type of games.
yeah, exactly. We had to settle on kind of like an opt-in system in the sense that people who did want to engage with the story
I see, I see,
had to opt in and find it through secret rooms, right? So
I
the
see.
core audience who just wanted that rage game platforming experience could play the entire game start to finish and not know anything about the
I
story.
see, I
But
see, I
people
see.
who did gravitate towards it, there was plenty of content there for them and they could go out of their way to discover it.
Nice, nice, nice. You
Mm.
mentioned that it was like a goal for you and your team to have a hard game. Was it like the
Yeah.
very first idea when you started working on this game to
Mhm.
have this goal of this higher level of difficulty setting in your game?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. The original Game Jam version was a Fodian game, so that
I
rage game.
see, I see, I see, I see, I see.
And I think in parts for a lot of reasons. I think at the time me and the twins, we watched a lot of Ludwig. Oh my gosh, we watched so much Ludwig during the time. And he played at the time he was playing like Jump King and Pogo Stuck and all of that stuff. And while we were losing our minds trying to like do these game jams and stuff, his content would usually be on the side. So it was kind of really inspiring to be like, hey, what if we make something that he could play or like
Did you
streamers and
play it, by
content
the way?
creators
Did
could
you
play?
play it, or
No, he hasn't played it. I wish one day
you
that
have to? You
I
have
could
to
kind of
pitch
have
it
his.
to him, right? You have to email him about
Mm.
that.
Yeah, 100%, hundred
Yeah,
percent. Yeah, it'd be awesome if you played it.
nice.
But yeah, we I think that kind of genre really appealed to us because of that. And I think the thought of creating a game like this and then once it's all done, being able to sit back with just like a bowl of popcorn and watch people lose their minds as they're playing it online is so appealing to me.
I see, I
So
see, I
yeah.
see, I see. So you were talking
Mm.
about the influence behind the gameplay mechanics. What was the influence behind the story? I was wondering about that too.
Ooh, yeah. So the story is really unique, I should
Okay,
say.
okay.
So
I'm
the
all
premise of
open
it
ears
is
to it.
yeah. So the premise of it is you play as Danny, a
Okay.
recently deceased soccer player who's just been sent to hell. She wakes up in Limbo, one of Dante's 9 layers of Inferno, and she sees her younger sibling there as well, Vincent. Unfortunately, he's shaped like a soccer ball, so Danny's got to kick, juggle, and header him outside of Inferno, essentially, so they
I
can
see.
both escape.
I see. I see.
Um, so that's like the core, like high up level of it, which is like this weird, quirky thing that's kind of like, makes people scratch their heads sometimes. To be like, oh, it's like a soccer like FIFA game, but you're kicking your brother, and it's like, yeah, so it's like a weird mix. But the story, when you get like deep into it and you're going through all the story beats and stuff through the secret rooms, it's really um a story about like siblings growing up together. They
I see.
didn't have much other than themselves, right? And
I see.
as what happens with most siblings, as they grow up, they start to drift, as their interests start to differ and stuff like that. So it's about, yeah, growing up with a younger sibling, looking after them, and then having that drifting moment,
I
and
see.
like how you can move on from that and all of that jazz.
I see. Is it something
Yeah.
that is related to your life or to any of the team members' life as well? Because let's start with
Mm,
this statement of mine. I believe that all of us creators who create our own craft, we always tend to put our inner self into the stories or into any craft we make, right? And I
mm,
believe that we also like put our own experiences from our past or current life, even
mhm,
if it's about like experiencing loss or some sadness or some happy moments like love.
mhm, mhm,
Is this statement of mine true for you if you make games? And what examples could you
mm.
bring, even if it's about the story that you mentioned so far?
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree
Okay,
that usually when creators are creating something, the best works that stand out the most are ones that are relatable to the creator and to an audience
okay,
that they're telling their story to. For me personally, I do have a younger sibling. However, this story in Ascending Inferno is more on the extreme end of, in this story, their parents weren't around, for example. So Danny, the main
I
character,
see,
really had to look after Vincent, the younger sibling, and we get to see
I
that
see,
story unfold
I see,
and all
I
of
see,
that
I see, I
stuff.
see, I see.
I was thankfully I didn't have to deal with that, but a lot of members on the team, have siblings or have parents who have split up and
I
have been
see,
in a similar situation, and
I
it's
see, I see, I
about
see,
telling that story and making it believable by getting those like relatable experiences
I see,
from
I see,
everyone.
I see,
Yeah,
I see. I appreciate your honesty, by the way, about this topic. Thank you for that.
yeah, no
Thank
stress.
you,
Yeah,
thank you, thank
more
you,
than happy to tell. Yeah.
thank you, thank you. So, what was your favorite moment
Mm.
of the process of making this game so far? Or parts, if there
Ooh,
were more parts that were your
yeah, my
favorite
favorite
ones?
moment. Oh my gosh. There is a lot. Yeah,
I'm
there's more ups
open
and
ears
downs,
again.
thankfully. Yeah. I think, uh, one of the big highlights, was when we took this game, to our first, like, big public, like, game showcase.
Okay,
We went
okay,
to an expo, PAX here in Australia,
okay.
and we showed it off for the first time to the general public, and, like, we were shocked that people actually liked the game. Like, it was such a heartwarming feeling. Like,
You had self
at the
doubts, or why? You think you were
yeah.
shocked? Okay, 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 okay,
Yeah, yeah. So it's
okay.
like because we'd been developing the game for at that point a year and a half, almost a
I
year and a
see,
half.
I see,
And Canberra, the city we live in Australia, is really really small. The game dev scene, whilst great here, like all the people are amazing, is also really small.
I
I
see,
think the amount of game developers who do it at like who have released something in Canberra is like double digits. So it's really, really small, the scene.
I see.
And whilst we could show it to them and get feedback and stuff, the convention we went to has like 80,000 people go to that, right? It's huge in
It's huge,
scale.
yeah.
Um, so getting that validation that it's like, oh, people like actually enjoy this. Maybe there is something here, was super heartwarming. And that was kind of like the light bulb on moment where it was just like so much validation. And it was just like, yes, okay, we haven't wasted the last year and a half of our life.
True, true,
It's
true,
like
true,
it was
true.
really good.
We have
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
for
So
it, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I see. What other
Mhm.
parts? Because you mentioned there were some parts, like
Mm,
a list of parts.
mm.
What were
Yeah,
your
so I think
favorite
that one
ones?
was a really big one for us. For me personally, hmm. Oh gosh. Yeah, there's so many. Okay, let's talk about. putting the team together. So
Okay.
our whole team um is from like Canberra here, this small
I
city in
see. I see.
Australia. Um, and it was a really slow and gradual process. So it started with four of us for 3 months, and then after that we onboarded our art team, which was another three more people. And then like 6 months after that, it was another two or three people, and it just slowly growing. And I think being able to confidently say that everyone that worked on the project like was really passionate and poured their heart and souls into it
I
is
see.
something that is like an amazing thing to be able to like confidently say. Like everyone on the team like did such an amazing job. They put like 110% into it all. And yeah, I'm genuinely passionate about it. And that excitement and passion is like really contagious. It's really motivating. Um, Especially when, like I was saying before, I'm super passionate about just game dev in general.
True.
So
True.
being
True.
surrounded by other people who share that
Makes
excitement is
double the
really,
fun,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like this amplifier for it. And
True. True.
it's,
True. True.
yeah, it made working full time and studying full time in my last year at uni and doing game dev at night like worth it. I didn't realize I was burnt out till after a year, but during that time it was like amazing. So
I
yeah.
see. I see. I see. I see. Any
Mm.
other parts that you could mention as well?
Mm, I think coming up with the themes for each layer of hell as
Okay.
well
Okay.
in Ascending Inferno was something that was really mentally stimulating.
I see.
Um, because it's based off of Dante's Inferno, but we wanted to give kind of like our little twist on it. So a limbo, for example, is just like kind of a default like rundown castle, something you would
I see.
probably imagine if you think the word limbo. Lust is like a cyberpunk style nightclub, so more futuristic, which the contrast between the two is crazy. And then you go to Gluttony, and then Gluttony is like an American fast food 80s diner. So again, the contrast is wild. And then it's just like coming up with all those really cool, different like settings. And then trying to tie in a mechanic to them was, yeah, really mentally stimulating. And I really enjoyed the process of coming up with the idea and turning it into a reality sort of thing.
I
Yeah.
see. I see. So you talked
Mm.
about your favorite parts. What about the hardest parts then?
Ooh, the hardest parts. Okay. Yeah. So I think um I'll give you two answers. I'll give you one for the team and I'll give you one for
Okay.
myself.
Okay.
I think for the team, because this was all of our first time making like a commercial game,
I see.
um, there's a lot of learning that goes into that. And I think with having so many people on the team, communication is something that is so important. And it was something that was probably lacking a lot, and it slowed down production for sure, and it left a lot of confusions between, say, like the artists and designers for where
I
people
see.
are up
I see.
to. Same with programming and stuff like that. And I think that communication definitely, uh, whilst it was low and we're still learning, negatively impacted production. There was definitely a time as well where for a year and a half, we were in a physical office face to face at a co working space, which was really nice. But our last year of production was all working from home. And that was really, really hard. At first, it
I see.
seemed amazing after a month, or like the first month. But after that, um, it was really a struggle to keep motivation and all of that
I
stuff.
see.
Not being able to walk into an office and see everyone being excited and passionate about the game, and trying to decipher it like excitement over Discord is like it's a tricky thing that
True.
you
True.
can't really
True.
do. And
True.
I
True.
Yeah, and I think like productivity wise, we were probably working at like 60 to 70% efficiency
I see.
during that last year, which was really a struggle. It felt hard. Like progress was being made, but we wouldn't see that progress for quite a bit. So
I see.
that
I
was a
see.
bit of a struggle.
I see.
And then for me personally, um, the first year was very rough because it was my last year of uni, studying full time. I was working like full time as well, more than just 9 to 5. The role I was in, um, I had to do a lot of overtime.
I
And
see.
then I would, after all of that, have to walk back into the office and, stay on top of everything and manage everything. Um, at the time, loved it, didn't have a care in the world, but I didn't realize how emotionally and mentally draining and taxing that was until towards the end of the year when we went on holiday. Um, and it's just like, yes, the whole team, everyone take it off for like a month and stuff and just relax. And I forced myself to relax, and it just like all hit me at once. The exhaustion, like it was
I see.
very mentally draining for me personally. I think for reference, I am terrified of heights. Like absolutely, I could stand on this table and I would freak out. But to wake myself up from that, like just to feel something in that moment when I was like on holiday, just like laying there, I went skydiving, which is like
Wow.
so extreme
Okay.
on the scale. Yeah, it's just like I need to feel human again. I went
You need to
skydiving.
feel something on your skin, right? Either it's the air or either
Yeah,
it's the ground if you fall.
yes, exactly. So that was like my wake up moment, and I was like, okay, I should, maybe now I finish study, maybe let's also drop work the part time, and yeah, look after myself a bit better.
I got that. I got that. Yeah, I had some moments in my life too related to that
Mm,
topic. Yeah, it's weird when you are so exhausting that you don't
mhm.
feel that you are really living, right?
Yeah,
It's weird.
exactly. It's a really surreal feeling, and I
True,
don't
true.
know how to describe it to anyone who hasn't felt that. Because whenever I say, "Oh, yeah, I just didn't feel human," people look at me like, "What does that mean?" Like,
True,
it's like, "Are
true,
you
true,
okay?"
true,
Yeah.
true,
So,
true. No, true.
yeah, it's a hard thing to go through, and I think it's something that is unfortunately very common in the game dev industry, where people are super passionate, and most of
True.
the time they have to do game dev on the side
Yeah, because
to
you are
full-time work.
constantly thinking of your passion and your work project, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, a more personal question from me would be: how have you changed as a person in other territories of your own life by being a game developer for so many years?
Mm,
If you had changed, of course.
yeah, that's a really good question.
Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah. How have I changed? Hmm. I think for one, I'm definitely more confident as a person.
Okay,
Because I was the producer for the team, so I had to be fairly confident in the calls I made and think really logically about stuff.
I see.
Even if it meant, scrapping some work or pivoting team goals and stuff, I have to be very confident in the decisions I'm making,
I
right?
see.
And I
I
think
see.
that confidence has carried over into a lot of different aspects in my life. Um, I was very introverted before I got into game dev,
I
like
see. I see.
unbelievably so.
I see.
I used to like religiously play League of Legends, if that gives you any idea. So I was very, very introverted.
Okay.
And then
Love
yeah,
that answer.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that confidence is definitely carried over, and now I can talk to people properly and like insert like
Now you win every
uh
match in League of Legends, right?
yeah, 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 100%. Yeah, so I think that for sure has is probably the biggest change, I
I
think.
see.
Yeah.
I see. I see. Is there anything, by
Mm.
the way, that you can think of that's changed in your life?
Mm, as in like still for how game dev has changed, or that process of game dev has changed different aspects of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that one's definitely the biggest one. I
okay.
think hmm yeah, I would probably say mainly that.
I see.
I would say I'm also very compassionate, but I think I've always been that because wanting to study psychology and do
I
clinical
see.
psych.
I see. I see. I see. I
I
see.
think it's probably been amplified a little bit more because in game dev, especially as I was saying before, communication is so important. So just taking the time to sit and listen to everyone on the team and get their feedback and input and all of that stuff, something that's really important. So I think I've always been compassionate, but game dev has made it a part of the day to day where it's like need to go in, I need to sit and discuss stuff with different people and yeah, see all these different viewpoints.
I see. I see. I see. I see.
Mm.
So we talked about this change for your other territories of your own life, but how have you changed on the player's perspective from being a game developer? Was there anything that changed as your perspective when you play games from being a game
Mm.
developer?
Yeah, for sure. I'm
Okay.
like super critical for games now, and
Okay.
it's like it kind of ruins the experience a little bit.
Okay.
I think when I think I can very easily be. Before I used to find it very easy to be immersed
I see.
in the game or
I see.
something
I see. I
and
see. I see.
look past the jank or anything like that.
I
But
see.
if I see any jankiness now in a game, it immediately snaps me out of it, and I just my brain my game dev brain kicks in. It's like, how would I fix that? Like, how would we do this better?
Not the
You know?
storyteller, but the game dev, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like that sort of thinking, for sure, definitely. I think has impacted me. I haven't played a game start to finish during game dev. I think I only played one game start to finish, and that was Cyberpunk.
Okay.
Um, and before I used to play like fairly frequently, a lot of games and
I
stuff,
see.
but
I
now
see.
it's I have so little time that when I am playing games, I want to, make sure it's worth that time. And because I look
I
at
see.
it so critically now, I just filter through games now. It's kind of just like, a dating app. I'm just swiping on the phone or something for different
Left, right.
games. Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So it's a really interesting, uh, I guess, side effect of getting in the game dev.
I see. I see. I see. I
Mm.
see. Do you believe, by the way, that games can educate people as well from the psychology
Oh,
side?
mhm.
And would you like
Yeah, yeah.
to do games like that as well? Like not just on the story
Yeah.
level, but in other ways as well?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think I owe a lot of my thought process and just how I like my outlook on life, I guess, through the games I played through growing up. I think 100% they have
Okay.
influenced me as a person and who I am
Okay.
today.
Okay.
Especially, I would have been, when did I first play like those PSG games? I would have been like 6 or something like that. Like yeah, going to grade 1, grade 2, and then playing PS2 and stuff at home. I think yeah, definitely, especially in those formative years, they can have such a big impact um, on like your character later on. I think so. I think yeah, without a doubt, for sure, they can impact you.
I see. I see. So you
Mhm.
mentioned that before your first commercial game, you also did a lot of like smaller games. Is it
Mm,
hard
mm.
for you to leave a past project behind and start a new one on an emotional level?
Yeah, yeah. I think yes. Yes. I think there's still moments where it's like even old game jam stuff from like a year ago and whatnot. Or just like little projects I've done. I still think like every now and again, just like, oh, what if I go back and do a little bit more work
I
on
see.
this
I see. I see.
presumably dead thing.
I see.
Um, I think, especially with what you were saying before and the question you had about creatives, putting a little piece of themselves into their works and stuff like that, especially if you've done that for a game, it can be really, really hard to move on
I see.
from it,
I see.
and kind of scrap an idea. It makes it really hard to look at things objectively from what would be like market viable to, hey, this is a game I'm really passionate about and two people have played it now. So it's
True.
like
True. True. True.
it's always a hard balancing act whenever you're talking about creativity in any sort of like um I guess livable, like can make money and
You have
afford
to
like
balance that.
work
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you balance it? Like, how do you feel about
Mm,
how your process of balancing it works? What's more
I
important to you? Like, do you always like put more percentage to the vision of yours, or
mm,
or even like balance it to the middle ground, or push to the other side, like to be more appealing to the people? But
mm,
I guess it's like more of
yeah.
the vision side, right? Because you mentioned that your difficulty goal was like to have this hard game, right? So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's really tricky. I think now because I have my partner and it's very plain behind me because I've just moved into this place like this week, right? So that's like another big life thing.
I
And
see.
I've got all these responsibilities and stuff where it's like they are unmovable,
True.
right? So what's the best way that I can meet that need and tick off those unmovable things? and then kind of mid max that the most efficiently, because then as soon as they're all accounted for, doesn't matter what I do with the rest of my time, right? I can go
True,
back
true,
and
true,
do
true,
my
true,
own thing. I
true,
can work away and on my stuff. I
true.
still work full time, kind of in game dev. I teach at a game dev school
Oh, okay.
here in Australia. So I still do that, and then still work at my studio and stuff again on the side. Thankfully, not studying anymore because oh my gosh, it's too much at once. But now it's like, I go teach
Sorry.
game dev and then I come back home, relax, and then do more game dev with my partner and stuff. And yeah.
How do you balance your free time if you have any free time?
Yeah, good question. I would say poorly. to be honest. I
That's an
think I
honest
could
question answer, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. I could do it better for sure. I have a really bad habit of doing things in burst. I've
I see,
noticed
I see,
now
I
that
see, I
I've
see.
worked. This studio has been around for 2.5 years, where I have like this burst of like this really long burst of 6 to 10 months of just laser focus on the game, where
I
it's
see.
like all my free time is going towards this, and then after that 6 to 10 months, just being like, I want to
You
do
go
nothing
skydive.
but lay in the sun. Yeah, exactly. Jump out another plane or something crazy like
That will be a new hobby of yours or a passion.
that. That's right. 100%. Yeah, yeah. So it's like I think that's a really bad habit of mine, and I think it's
I see.
probably the most common habit of people in game dev, where
True,
they
true, true,
do
true, true.
everything and they work themselves
But
till
that's the
they bare.
passion, right? During the
Yeah,
process of
exactly.
making the project of theirs, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so I wish I could balance that more, where it's
I
just
see.
like, yeah, I have more downtime during the projects. I'm hoping now that I've just freshly moved to this place, so I can get into some sort of schedule and rhythm
I see.
of doing something. But when you've got the immovable things of, hey, I need money to put a roof over my head, and the immovable thing of, hey, this game's got a deadline, like there's just innately going to be some sort of imbalance.
True, 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 true.
Mm.
You mentioned that your team is about having like more than 14 people, right? Was it hard to find the right people to work with?
Thankfully, that's a good question. Thankfully for us, it was surprisingly easy.
Okay.
Um, because the Canberra game dev scene is so small, whenever we had a role pop up, we immediately could associate that with someone
I see, I see, I see, I see.
who we'd already interacted with in some way, shape,
Oh,
or
I
form
see, I see, I
before
see,
having that demand.
I
Yeah.
see.
So everyone who joined the team, we knew beforehand, sort
I
of.
see.
Of just like we met them at local game dev meetups, or we met them at the co-working space we were in and stuff like that. It was really, really convenient. Um, yeah, and I think, like I was saying, the game dev scene here is really small, but all the devs here are so passionate. Like it's, yeah, like I said, contagious, really contagious. So it
I see.
was really simplified for us, I would say.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Do you think, by the way, that in those countries, like you mentioned, that in your place as well, it's like less common to have more game developers? Do you think like
Mm.
people can grow up in this sense of like being educated in order to like make the first step into the video game industry, even if it's on from the player side, even if it's like from the developer side?
Mm. Mm.
Like, could you bigger
No.
up the culture level in a country
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
video games? Do you think it's possible?
Yeah. I think for sure there are
Okay,
certain states in Australia that do it really well, and
okay,
culturally, game dev is
okay.
like this crazy cool thing and like this dream that people aspire to do. Even if their parents are just like, no, go do law, go be a doctor or something like that. I think there's
Sorry.
kind of always gonna that's so good. There's always kind of gonna be some like I don't even know what the word is, like some sort of like down looking on games,
True,
but I
true,
think
true,
different
true.
states in Australia do it really well.
I see.
Canberra, where I'm currently in, is like it's the capital, which not many people know. Everyone thinks it's Sydney. And everyone here in Canberra, there's only two types of people in Canberra, is what everyone says, which is university students or government workers. There's usually no in between, right? So it's like, because it's so focused on those two things, I think that's part of the reason why the game dev scene here is really small,
I see.
because people who are really passionate about game dev don't get the support they need here, and then they move to places like Sydney or Melbourne, elsewhere in Australia, and those scenes are really big there. It may be my personal goal to eventually move there as well.
True, true, true.
Yes, I think there's definitely ways to go about it, and take the first steps and stuff, regardless of where you are.
True.
It's just every I almost said it's kind of like a bad spawn, but let's maybe not use
True,
that
I agree with
terminology.
you on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
yeah,
people
yeah. I
would be
think
shooting you in an FPS game, right? From the start, you spawn into the game.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think the spawn point can play a part in it, but you can always take those steps to get into the
True,
scene,
true, true,
regardless. I
true,
think,
true.
and it's just the journey to properly get into it looks different based on where you are.
True, true, true.
Yeah.
So we talked about the gameplay part, the story part about your game. What about the music part of or
Oh,
segments?
the music. Yeah. So the music part is. I very rarely get to talk about the music because I love the music. So we have a
I'm
very
thinking of
talented.
everything. See.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So we have a very extremely talented composer
Okay.
whose name is Dan Poole.
Okay.
We met him here in Canberra. He's a Canberra kid, but he recently
Okay.
moved to London, so he's been working remotely.
I see.
And he did our entire OST. He is amazingly talented. I'll have to send you his playlist because
Yeah, go for
the
that. Do that. Do
music.
that.
Yeah, the music presented a lot of really interesting challenges because how I was telling you all the different layers of how they're themed so differently, right? Like, how do you do music for a nightclub and then transition that into an
True,
American
true,
fast food
true, true,
diner?
true, true.
So I mean, it all looks like magic to me. He's such a magician that he made it work, and it sounds good. Like, it's yeah. He also, because he's in the UK at the moment. We He's been able to network there and meet other musicians and stuff. So I imagine his personal growth has been really good. But we also
I see.
had a really unique collab as well with Amelia Jones for our final
I see.
track of the
I see.
game. She sung on Hollow Knight, Slay the Princess.
Okay.
Uh, what else? Made in Abyss and stuff like that. And she sung the track for our last song, which is like, this is so crazy to think of that. So I think the music for sure on its own is like a selling point. I kind of jokingly say that for what the game's $21, you spend $21 on the album and you get a full game with it.
True, true, true,
It's really
true,
good.
true, true. You mentioned
Yeah.
this price tag oriented society that we live in now by this topic, right? Why do you
Mm.
believe that people are so into like criticizing forms of art like video games by their price, which is wrong from my perspective
Mm.
and my opinion.
Yeah. That's a really interesting question. I think something as well that has risen in the past few years for sure. I think now, just like you know, global state of economy and stuff. I think
Okay.
everywhere money is tight.
True, true,
Um,
true, true,
People
true,
have less money to spend because people have to spend more money on the essentials.
true.
Um, and all of that jazz. And I think games innately are the consumer. I think. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I think this is my how I see it. I think the consumer looks at games as an experience first and foremost,
I
right?
see. I
So
see.
it's like, I can experience this art for $50 and all the reviews say it's amazing, right? So it's going to be a great experience. Or I could experience something of similar quality, maybe slightly more for $110, like a
I
big
see.
AAA game or
I
something
see.
like that. And I think people and humans just innately love to categorize things in
True.
ways that are
True.
easy to digest. So I think people thinking of things as experiences first and foremost makes it very easy to compare games to each other, and then the price of admission for that experience is the game price, right? So that becomes like a contentious point of comparison, I think.
Yeah, but it's still sad to me to see that because, like, in my
Mm.
opinion, at least, you cannot compare a game by its price, right? So,
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. I think when we were making our game, we really wanted to when we were making it, we were like, hey, this is like a $35 to $40 game. Like we feel pretty comfortable with
I
that.
see. I
And
see.
through a lot of advice we got from people who are more experienced in like that more like businessy side of stuff,
I see.
we ended up bumping it down to $20 or like 16 USD or something
I
like
see.
that.
I see.
Substantially less than what we originally envisioned. And it, at the time was like, ooh, but 2.5 years of my life has gone into making this thing. And it's
True.
it's just the harsh reality, I think, of just
It's
what
like you
people are
would give
willing to
bread
spend.
for free to people, right? I
Yeah,
always joke at
exactly.
it, but it's true, right? So people do
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
see behind the curtain, and they do not understand the work. That's why they are not willing to pay enough money for these games, in my opinion.
Mm,
And what's interesting is
yeah,
as well is that, like, in my opinion, when I was a kid, and I mean, you can also relate to that thing probably, that games
mm,
games never were cheap, right? They always has this high price to pay, in my opinion. Even the
yeah,
PlayStation 2 era, like I remember, games were very like pricey back
mm,
then too. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, just everything's expensive.
True,
I
true,
think
true,
it's
true.
like currently, like, just with the state of like, yeah, just prices for everything going up,
True,
and
true,
wages not necessarily keeping up with that. Um,
true.
but yeah, it is an interesting thing to be like, when I was in what, seventh grade, and I was going to our local GameStop or local game store to buy like the new Call of Duty game, and it was like 60, $70, and I was like, oof, my heart, that's so much money. I have to put all my allowance and stuff together. And then now it's like, base AAA games are $110, $120 Australian dollars. And it's like, oh, that's for the base experience. If you want the full experience, you need to buy the $160 version of the
True,
game.
true,
And it's
true,
like,
true, true, true.
triple, quadruple the price, and we're getting the same thing just with a new skin. Like
True,
it's an interesting thing, I think.
true,
It's a shame it's that way.
true, very true, very true. You mentioned about, or you talked about writing as well. Are you planning to write books or any other forms of art, not just like video games?
Mm, yeah, I would absolutely love to. My
I see.
my granddad is also an author
Oh,
as well.
nice.
And he's written some stuff. He's been working on this big trilogy, like fantasy um piece for like a decade or something, and it's very inspiring to see. And I
Let me know if he released it, and I would be down to
yeah.
read it. Let me know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I think that sort of thing is like really cool. And I think fundamentally, I enjoy telling stories.
I
So
see.
I would like to say
Yeah,
yes
that's
to
why
that
that's why I
answer.
asked you, because I could tell from the beginning that you started talking. I'm also like a therapy session person, you know. I always say this in my dev
Yeah,
live
yeah.
shows that it's my dev live shows are our episodes are
Mm,
not just a therapy session for me, but for the people I talk with, my guests too. So I could tell already
mm,
that you're have this passion or having this passion for writing as well. Because I'm a writer as well, so
mm.
I can tell when somebody
Oh,
is,
awesome.
very
Mm.
down to writing stories. So yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah. I think that you should really like pursue that dream of yours too, not just the video game
Mm.
making dream of yours. But
Oh,
yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're
I'll
welcome.
have to get into it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what
Mm.
about, by the way, the physical editions of Ascending Inferno? Are you planning to have like any physical editions of the game? Since I'm not
Oh, that
aware
would
if
be
there were any
mm,
plans
mm.
for the game to have
Yeah.
physical editions.
I would love to.
Okay.
I think logistically not doable at the moment.
I see.
I think one of my big bucket list things, I don't know if it will ever happen, but as I was saying, I grew up on the PlayStation. I would love to play this on the PlayStation. At the moment, it's only a PC game. And I'd like to think that if we did port it over to consoles and stuff, we would do physical editions. That's a whole nother rabbit hole though,
And
and
I
like
think it would
distribution
also
and
like
yeah.
make sense to have your game on
Mm,
PlayStation, because in my opinion the genre in which your
mm,
game is in is also appealing
mhm.
to PlayStation players, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Our weirdly enough, our most asked question ever at like physical like showcase events or just online in like YouTube videos and stuff is, can I play this on Switch? Which the answer is no, but that's an interesting thing that comes up. And Like, I would love it if we could. Um, a logistical nightmare, yes, but one that, could be really
That's the
interesting and
skydiving
yeah.
part of your life, right?
Yeah.
Just not in a
Yeah.
fun way now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, for 100%. It's at least skydiving's only 20 minutes, while this
True,
is like
true,
a
true.
month, 7 months. you know.
you would
So,
uh, you would want to go back home, but they do not let you. You still
yeah,
need to
yeah,
be
exactly.
there flying. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
True, true,
yeah,
true.
definitely. Yeah, so it's like I would love to. I think
I see.
fundamentally, the more accessible the game is, and the more people that can enjoy it, like that's more people that are enjoying, this experience and this whole thing we've put so much of our lifespan into to create and stuff. So why wouldn't we further that um exposure? But yeah, there's you know all those logistical things of like, yes, okay, we'll get a dev kit, and then oh no, it's an Unreal 5 and the lighting's not optimal, and we need to make it run on phone graphics for the Switch. So, oh my gosh. And it's like, oh, that would take 8 months. And yeah, all of that sort of stuff.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
So what's next, by the way? What's next for your company and for you with video game
Mm,
development? As for
yeah.
your
Yeah. So,
future plans, is there anything that's
mm,
planned out for the future, or you're still like enjoying after the release time?
yeah. So we've kind of got a skeleton crew at the moment,
I see.
where it's back to just the original founders now.
I see.
And we've got some updates planned. We've got some pretty big ones actually. That will hopefully be live by the end of the year. Um, there's a certain point we want the game to get to where we're comfortable that it can sit on a shelf and it will speak for itself.
I see.
And when we reach that point, which we're hoping is going to be January, February next year,
I see.
um, where we're going to return back to roots and do our game jams again
I see.
every weekend for a month, where we'll just try making a bunch of different stuff and see what we enjoy
I
doing and
see.
what sparks that inspiration. And then whatever we enjoy the most is what we'll run with after that.
I see. I see.
Mm,
More personal question from me would be again, do you think like by
mm,
now that you worked on so many games and on a commercial game as well, you found yourself in life more and you're at the right place and the right time by releasing this game of yours and your teams as well?
yes. Yes. I think I can't imagine what my life would be if I didn't do it.
I
I
see.
think I owe a lot of who I am and where I currently am to the fact that we took this crazy leap to make the game over 2.5 years, and went down this whole rabbit hole of doing all this stuff. Um, I definitely tick that off my checklist now. I'm very happy about it, and it's just reaffirmed that yes, it is something I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I always, in some capacity, will always chip away at, regardless of what I have to do. So,
I
yeah.
see. I see. So going
Mm,
back when we talked about the balancing thing about like the balance
mhm,
of like your own vision and also like the players' opinions, how important is it to you to read every opinion of the players regarding to your game
mm,
that you have released?
mhm, mhm. I read every single one.
Okay,
I think
okay.
every one I've seen. Um,
Can you get
I
very
think I've
sad,
read,
by the way?
yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. If there is a very negative or very harsh comments,
Yeah, I
if
think
that happened,
it's
of course, I'm
definitely,
not sure if that happened or no, but
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely, it can be discouraging at times when you
I see, I
see
see.
stuff like that, where it's like, it's like you just want to grab the person and be like, no, you didn't see my vision. Or it's like, it's like
Sorry.
didn't play it the way intended or something like that.
You want to
But
kick the ball,
everyone,
right? Just in real life.
yeah, 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 exactly.
or get
It's
or
like,
get them to skydive with you as well.
yeah, 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 yeah. I just want to give them a parachute or something like that. So that can be disheartening at times, but I think most, I would say so far, at least 90% of the time, um, it's we can track that back to some sort of valid
I
criticism
see.
or feedback that
Always,
we
always,
can.
or the most of the times.
Most of the time, I'd say
Okay.
90% of the
Okay.
time so far.
Okay.
We've been very lucky so far, where the game's got like, I think not many reviews on Steam, like 40, 50 reviews, but there's not a single negative one on there. at the moment. So all the feedback we get is through our Discord and stuff where people are
see.
playing and they're like, hey, don't understand the design decision behind this.
I
And
see.
then, or something like that, or like, hey, this is very hard, or like, something about difficulty curve, or like just stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, the fact that they're in our Discord means they're engaged enough that they're trying to communicate with us, right? Because there's extra steps to get into a Discord instead of shouting it into like a YouTube comment or something like that.
True.
So they want to be seen. And then it's just, trying to dissect that. We have had, on the flip side of that, we have had some questionable feedback where we're like, okay, been like, where it's just like, there's nothing we can do about that. Or it's just like, that is so out of left field. We're just not going to do anything. So,
True.
yeah.
True.
Mhm,
So we
mhm.
touched here a lot of topics. Is there anything that you would like to talk about before we go into some questions from my community, and I will ask some more questions as well?
Mm, no, I think we've had a really good range. Some very insightful questions from yourself. Got to talk about a lot of things that
Thank you.
I haven't done before in a lot of interviews. So yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let us know. Let us know if there is anything that you would like to ask. Let us know. Speak up. Speak up. I know it's work hours at my place, but let us know. Let us know. Drop your pen,
Mm,
drop your work, and let us know. Hölgyek, urak, hogyha bármilyen kérdés van, nyugodtan kérdeztek. Let us know if you have any questions. Let us know. Let us know if you have any questions. I will also like share again
mm,
um, the Steam page of the game because I shared it, but
mm,
Twitch dropped it. Okay, let me highlight it as well. There you go. Let us know. Let us know. Let us know, ladies and gentlemen. So while we are waiting for questions to be asked, what would be your advice for people who would like to start their career or their hobby or passion as a game
mm.
developer from all your
Yeah,
experiences, from personal experiences and also team experience?
yeah. Ooh, good question. So first things first, don't like dive like 100% into it. Don't quit your job tomorrow and be like, I am going to learn how to use a Unity tomorrow, right? Like, do it slowly. I think now's a really good time to get into game dev because the internet is a thing, so game dev's really
Sure.
accessible. Um, there is so many games being made nowadays and just a part of that is there is so many resources available to people completely for free. You can look on YouTube and stuff like that. I think just do it. Like, do it on the side, do it as a hobby, see if you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, then, you'll just naturally, gradually do more and more in your free time because it's something you kind of see as, more of that enjoyable hobby, downtime sort of thing, away from the 9 to 5 work. And get it to a point where you can get it sustainable enough where it's like, oh, it's made I'm making a little bit of money. So I can, instead of working 5 days a week, I can do 4 days a week at my 9 to 5 and then do a day to this and kind of wean onto it. I think, as we were saying before, anything creative is just always innately risky.
True, true,
So, you want to look after yourself, right? And have
true.
that safety net to support you because, if, the game dev doesn't work out or you're a solo dev and you've worked on a game for 8 years and 20 people have bought the game, like, that's pretty rough. Make sure you have the support network, and you can support yourself to catch you from that fall. And just love the process. I think is a really important thing. Don't obsess over the outcome. Just enjoy the journey along the way, and the outcome will just happen naturally.
I
So,
see. I
yeah.
see. I see. So again, a more personal question from me would be: you mentioned that you were studying uh, psychology at university and you were
Mhm.
studying game development by yourself, right? What is
Mhm.
more appealing to you, having a mentor or teachers teaching you something, or learning something by
Mm.
yourself, right? Because it's like two phases
Mhm.
of your
Mhm.
life, two different type of like, teachings. in your life?
Yeah, yeah. I personally really, really suck at self-directed learning.
Okay,
Like I am awful at it. Um, I think you do what you must if that's the only way you
I
can
see.
learn.
I see.
Or like get resources that are available to you
If you would
to
happen
learn
to
things like
have the choice
mm,
of like choosing game development to be learned by a mentor or by teachers, would you choose that
mm.
option in your
I
life?
Yeah, personally, I would.
I see.
I think there's a lot of benefit to it
I
for
see.
sure.
I
I
see. I
think
see.
it's not a necessity for everyone, but for me personally, I think I would have benefited a decent amount from it for sure.
I see.
Um,
I see.
where because I'm self-taught, I can do things and I know how to do them, but that sort of theory behind why I'm doing things a certain way is kind of lost. Like there's little gaps in my knowledge that I kind of have to piece together from, chatting to other people on the team who have had formal, um, like education and stuff.
I see.
Um, I think one of the best things you can always do, regardless of the way you learn, is find other people who are trying to learn it as well, or are maybe a few years ahead in their learning journey. Even if
Okay.
you're self-taught, like engaging with your local game dev community, and just asking questions. You'd at least here, you'd be surprised how many people I've asked like the dumbest questions to in the game dev scene, and then they'll take the time to sit and explain it, and it's just like my mind's just like been expanded, and
True.
I'm
True. True.
like, I'm Isaac 2.0 now. I can do everything twice as good, and
You have to
I've
be
just
brave
asked like,
about asking questions, right? So that's how you learn,
yeah,
right?
100%, yeah, yeah, and it's like, you don't have to just like full send it, just get comfortable, meet people.
True.
I think, like we are saying before, a lot of other game devs are really passionate about what they do,
True.
right? And
True.
that passion
True.
is contagious, right? So just give
But
it
for
time.
most of them, it's not about the competition, so they are more willingly or more likely willing to to give a helping hand, right? So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There was like yeah, for example, I just asked like how, Steam works, or like the Steam backend worked. Uh, and all of that stuff, because I had no clue, and the Steam documentation is good, but my gosh, I'm a designer. I don't want to read like hundreds of pages of
you like to
documentation.
read books, but not that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that's like
That's
a
the
whole
boring
novel, like
stuff.
a three-part novel. Yeah. So I just went to another like dev studio who had released something, and I just asked, and they sat with me, and they're like, "Yes, so this is our Steam works. This is how everything works. Oh, here's our sales, by the way, of everything we've made in 3 years. This is how you
Mm,
can break it down." And it's just like, oh my god, it's just like, yeah, so enlightening.
true.
Always think like the worst thing people can say is no, which is like,
True, true,
if you're
true,
walking
true.
up to someone and you're like, how do I texture this? And they say no, it's like, okay,
Okay, you just find another person
sure,
to ask who has
you
the
know,
knowledge, right? So
yeah, exactly,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, 100%.
yeah. Okay. Is there any question, by the way, ladies and gentlemen? Let us know. Let us know. Let us know. Speak up. Speak up. Speak up from the lurk phase. Speak up. Oh, by the way, a question that I almost forgot to ask. What was the influence behind the name of your game? Because I can tell that it's probably because Dante's Inferno, but
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yes, because of Dante's Inferno. Um, the original reason is so dumb. It's
okay,
really dumb,
okay.
which is when we were first showing off and prototyping the game to like really early prototypes, and we're showing it to players. I think back then the name of the game was like Kicked Out of Hell instead, like kicked as in kicked out of a soccer
Okay,
ball,
okay, okay,
like
okay.
sort of thing. Um, and some people in their feedback were saying, I didn't know the goal of the game was to go up, as their feedback. And we're like,
Oh, okay.
okay, that might be a level design thing, but like, how do we make this painfully obvious to people? And then we put it in the name of the game, ascending, aka going up, and then Inferno, because Dante's Inferno. So just made it really, really
See, I
obvious.
see, I see, I see, I see, I see,
Mhm, mhm.
I see, I see. So you mentioned that
Yeah.
you always had ideas for games that you would like to make. What kind of genres would you like to touch in the future?
Oh, I would absolutely love to do something narrative driven,
Okay,
like 100%, like
okay,
some sort of single player linear narrative
okay.
story game. Would absolutely like I would eat that up for sure. Um, fingers crossed it might be for next game. Depends on what everyone else wants to do, but
Okay,
personally, I think that would be a big goal of mine. Yeah,
I see. I see. Which is your favorite game, by the way, as a player of all time favorite game?
all time favorite
Because you
games.
mentioned
Oh
that
my,
you played a lot of games just like me, so I'm curious about what
yeah.
was your favorite.
I
Mine
can
is
give you
Final
top.
Fantasy X, so let's start with me. My Final
Okay,
Fantasy X.
yeah, nice. Respect,
Thank you.
respect. I can give you top three that like
Okay,
occasionally shift
okay,
based on like what I'm doing. Top three would be Cyberpunk,
okay,
including the DLC,
okay,
um, Near Automata,
okay. Love that choice. Love
and
that choice.
yeah, really good. And then a
Choice.
bit more niche, but Catherine Full Body for the
Love that
PlayStation.
choice. Love that choice.
Yeah,
Okay,
fantastic
okay.
game. And whenever I say it, like no one's heard of it. It's like so upsetting.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. Me too. Me too. Me too.
mm,
What do you think, by
yeah,
the way?
such
Have you completed all the endings of Nier Automata, by the way?
Oh, I've done most. I've
Okay,
haven't done all of them because there's so many, but I've done like all 3 playthroughs
okay.
and then replayed it
Can I spoil
again with
something
either
for
like
you, or you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
down
yeah.
to? Okay, because there was like, if you complete all the endings, there is a special ending, and you have to like
Mm,
sacrifice your own save data in order to like have.
yes.
You remember that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
this
yep,
was
yep.
such a cool and unique way to show that if people get together in a group and help each other, they can like
Mhm.
do big things and achieve this
Yeah.
very peaceful place together. It was such a nice thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's such a cool thought as well that because
True.
obviously when you're at that point in the game, you're like, you're done, right? There's nothing else after this, and like, how can you symbolically symbol to the player that like like the whole experience is done now, you can move on.
True.
It's deleting their save, right?
True, true,
It's
true,
like
true.
move on. Yeah.
Yeah, because in most of the cases, as it comes to a player and their video games that they play, they do not like think about like there is this save file. I always could reuse it, like if I want to go back to
Mm,
replay my memories. But if you choose that to happen, you won't be able to do that, right? Unless you make
mhm.
like a you know additional save for a hard drive, external hard drive. So yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah. It
Mhm.
was very interesting for me to see that. Very good choices, by the way. I love that. Love that. Love
Ah,
that.
thank you, thank you.
Love
Do you
that.
have a top 3 other than Final Fantasy X?
Oh, it's a hard question for me. Final Fantasy
Mm,
X, after Final Fantasy X, I would say The Last of Us 1, 2 would be
yeah,
probably.
nice. Mhm.
Also, it's a hard one. I could probably name top 4 or 5.
Ooh, okay, yeah, do top 4 then.
Yeah. Uncharted 2, I would say, because
Ooh,
I love
great.
the story
Yeah.
and it was also my first online multiplayer experience, and back then I met so many people whom I came across as friends with, so it was really like a community
Mm,
building multiplayer as well. A lot of people do not even know that Uncharted 2 was the first Uncharted that had multiplayer, by the way, so people just consumed it for the
mhm,
story, but there was a very like unique multiplayer, this TPS
mhm.
arena based 5v5 shooter with like
Yeah.
pickup guns. So everyone had the same gun at the beginning of the match, and they had to pick up the power
Mhm.
weapons like the China Lake or the RPG or the sniper.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
Also, I think I would probably say from my childhood, probably if I just go for my childhood age, probably would
Mhm.
be the Telltale Walking Dead season 1.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
that
Wow, I
that
haven't
was
had
and also Near Games. So Near Games is like
yeah,
top games. I also
yeah.
loved Replicant as well. In my case, I would say like in some ways I even loved Replicant more than Automata, because
Yeah. Mhm.
because I don't know how to say, is that it had more like topics that touched me as a person.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
that's fair.
both games are great. So I always say this: the Japanese people like have this such high emotional level and psychology level of understanding human beings, much more,
Mm,
in my opinion, than other nation companies. And I'm not being harsh with it, but they are like
mm, mm,
way higher of reflecting the real life issues in our society. And they are doing it in a very risky way, right? Because they are telling it to your face that here is this problem, you have to deal with it, and how do you deal
mm,
with it. And I think that European and American games are a bit like nowadays, especially, are scared to talk about these very hard topics, right?
mm.
Like they are
Yeah.
talking about it, but most of the companies are nowadays, because of the cancel culture that we live in now, are like,
Mm,
for them it's very risky nowadays to like touch those topics.
mm.
I remember back in PlayStation 1, 2, and especially in free era, games were like super down to talk about like risky, topics, especially the Last of Us games as well. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good choices. Very good choices.
Thank you. Thank you. So, what
Mm,
about the books that you mentioned that you would like to write about? What would be like an influence that you would like to write about as a personal, like you mentioned, and I'm curious
mm,
about and
mm,
interested about what would be like that segment of your life that you would like to write about. Of course, without spoilers, so don't spoil
mm.
anything so people can't use it, right? So be careful about
Yeah,
what you are saying.
100%. Oh, that's a really, really good question.
Thank you.
I think, um, hmm, for books, I think I have a lot of inspiration for, gosh, hmm, there's a lot of, okay, so this isn't a book inspiration. This
Okay.
is more visual novel stuff that
Okay.
has, like, I think tell really, really cool, unique stories
I
in a
see.
very risky way. Have you heard of a game called Cat Lady?
I think I did, but I haven't played it.
It's very, very old. Or that, or like To the Moon also is really good.
Okay.
Like those games, like tell really depressing stories in
Okay.
really like unique and like yeah, just really unique ways. I'd love to be able to tell a story like that, like some sort of story centered around loss
I
or
see.
something like mental health or something like that, and
I
try and
see.
tackle it in that kind of yeah, unique sort of
I
artsy
respect
way.
that, by the way. I respect that. That ties up and
Mm.
that's connected to your like university studies, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. 100%. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
yeah. And I appreciate that and I respect that because I think that people, especially nowadays, need games like that that really like helps them overcome their
Mhm.
fears, their real life issues and problems. Not just have fun,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the core message, to have fun, but also like to overcome these problems. Yeah. So about speaking
Yeah,
the
definitely.
message, what would be like the ultimate message that you always wanted to give to the players with your games that you made so far? Because I believe that
Mm,
all of us creators always have this ultimate message, even if it's like not intentional, right? That we not constantly think about the message that we want to give, but we still end up like giving this, core message to
mm,
the to
mm.
the consumers, let's
Yeah,
say.
yeah, another really good question. I think a large way of how I live day to day and just like, yeah, just goal wise is I try and live in a way where I have the least regret as
I see.
possible.
I see. I see.
So making the most out of everything. And I think that is something I'd like to tell
I see.
through a story. And I think like even Ascending Inferno kind of has that like whole regret theme
I see.
throughout its story. And I think a lot of regret can be tied to some sense of loss. So
I
fundamentally a
see.
story about loss
I
and how
see.
we overcome that
True. That's
and
very true.
all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think that would be something I would really, really enjoy telling a story around, and I think would be like the magnum opus piece. I think
Love that. Love that. Love that.
yeah, I think yeah, that for sure would be the goal, definitely.
Love that. Love that. And I totally respect that. Like I said, I respect that. Thank you. Thank you for
Mm,
your honesty
thank you.
again. Thank you.
No, thank you for the good questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Mm.
We touched here a lot of topics, like I said before. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Um, no, not necessarily. I might. If anyone watching has played Ascending Inferno, there's more stuff coming along the way. We've got a showcase event coming up pretty soon, and we'll have a fancy trailer just for that as well with our
Nice, nice,
accolades.
nice, nice, nice.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really cool quotes we got for that. Which spoilers, I guess. We have a quote from Bennett Foddy, the creator of the genre, and getting over it and stuff. Played the game and gave us his thoughts and stuff, and that's like the big like, oh, pinch me, am I dreaming moment? Like it was, yeah. So really excited for that trailer to go live.
Nice. Thank you for that. I
Mm,
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
all good, all good.
When players can hear about your next project? Is it something that it's like
Mm,
next year, early
mhm.
next year, or later
We'll probably
next
have
year?
something. Yeah, I imagine we would have something publicly facing maybe mid next year.
Okay,
It'll probably be really small,
I
kind of,
see.
those teasery
I see.
sort of stuff. But by then we would have pretty solid direction, I think, on what we wanted to do, and would start teasing it by then. The best way to stay up to date for that sort of stuff is just our socials, our Discord and stuff.
Okay,
We very regularly post on there, so
I see.
yeah.
I see. Thank you for that. Thank you for that again. Okay.
Mhm.
It was really my honor and my pleasure to be with you here. And thank you, like I said, for
Ah,
your honesty. I really appreciate that. For those who
mhm,
are watching us live, thank you also that you joined us for today's episode. Don't forget to take a look on the Steam page of the game and also wait for the updates as well. Try out the demo. There a demo, right? For the game, if I'm
ah,
aware of that,
there,
right?
there used to be,
Or
there
they
no
used to be,
longer is.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just because of the type of game. Not that I endorse it, but if you buy the game, there's 2 hours you can play of it and see if
True,
you
true,
like it or
true,
not.
true, true, true,
Yeah,
true. That also counts as demo, right? So do that.
yeah,
Do that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
True, 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 true. Thank you again. Like I said before, I
Mhm,
will need some more of your time off stream, but for those who are watching us
mhm,
live, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to try out not the demo, but the 2 hours version of
mhm.
the game on Steam. And yeah, thanks for joining us for today's episode. Have a very nice day or evening, depending where you live. Bye bye, everyone. Bye bye. Bye
See
bye.
you guys. Thank you
Bye
for
bye.
having me.
Thank you.